Previously on Frozen Sick, the party agreed to undertake a quest to discover the mysterious cause of the death of local adventurer Ergen Wenth, and a means to prevent the malady from spreading further within the village of Palebank. Following leads acquired in town, the party have come to surmise that the source of the sickness may be tied to certain artifacts Ergen Wenth brought back with him from his adventures in the north. These artifacts appear to be in the hands of a local group of bandits, and the party have ventured to their hideout, a frigid cave nestled in the lowlands of the Flockett Alps, and have overcome their first true challenge by besting some of the belligerent amphibious life forms that were guarding the entrance to the cave. With the frogs down, the group resume attempts to cross the pond that blocks the entrance to the cave. Tying a rope around a javelin, they manage to secure a plank of wood resting on the far side and haul it across to them, positioning it like a bridge to enable safe crossing. Presumably this is how the bandits get in and out of this cave. Klaus, Zarissa and Vlad cross uneventfully, but Roman's heavy-footed plodding causes a bowing rhythm that ends up pitching both himself and Irina, who is stuck behind him, into the frigid water when they're about halfway across. Irina deftly gets herself back onto the plank and completes the crossing, not too worse for wear, although somewhat indignant at Romand, whereas in his heavy plate, the dwarf struggles to get to shore, freezing water soaking him and chilling him to the bone. The icy water downs Romand's spirits, and he mentions he's keen to get this over with, but is encouraged by Irina telling him to dwarf up, and if he's feeling cold, perhaps Zarissa can keep him warm. To which Romand responds, "We're already investigating one disease, we'd better not add another." Hearing chittering and croaking from further within the cave, Klaus hushes the group, although they continue to whisper to each other, with Romand asking if Vlad is a cleric, and Zarissa helpfully reminding him that Vlad is a dwarf. Klaus blends into the shadows and takes point, moving down into the cave, and spots a group of bandits apparently playing with, or perhaps training, a couple of the large ice frogs. Unfortunately, Zarissa is not being particularly subtle in her banter, and her voice carries loudly down the echoey tunnel, alerting the bandits to the fact they've got company. With the jig up, the quick and agile Irina looses an arrow from her longbow that strikes a frog, and pushing Zarissa out of the way, Roman follows up, sprinting forward and hurling a javelin. It strikes the frog through its surprised and open mouth, leaving a slightly protruding bump on the rear as it doesn't quite break the skin at the point of exit. The bandits call for Jessica to attack, Jessica apparently being the frog, and when they realise this, they furiously run forward to meet the intruders. Roman takes the brunt of the attack from a burly, scimitar-wielding dwarf, but his assailant's blows bounce meekly off his sturdy armour. An elven bandit closes in on Irina, who drops her bow and pulls out her sword to defend herself. Another frog hops forward to attack, and Klaus appears from concealment, but as he lunges to strike with his blade, he slips on the slick icy rocks of the cave, completely missing his target, with his weapon squealing and grinding against Roman's armour instead. Zarissa hurls a javelin at the elf attacking Irina, badly wounding the bandit as she joins the fray. From behind the front line, Vlad begins weaving the power of the divine into a bolt of sacred flame that also strikes at the elven bandit, and Irina quickly puts down the bloodied and burning elf with a disemboweling strike from her short sword. Romand and his dwarven adversary continue to exchange blows as another bandit and the frog turn on Klaus. Still off balance, Klaus can't avoid a heavy slash across the torso from a scimitar that takes him to death's door. Bleeding heavily, he scrambles to disengage and manages to half fall, half crawl behind Vlad, who uses his holy power to cast Cure Wounds, completely mending Klaus's injury. Irina moves to assist Romand, and the dwarven bandit isn't able to fend them both off, with Irina's short sword opening up his guard, and Romand saying, "I will take all you have, bandit, including your life," to which the bandit desperately replied, "I don't have much to give," to which Romand rejoined, "And soon you'll have even less to give. Nothing to speak of and no voice with which to speak at all." And so saying, he raised his shield and began to swing his hammer in an overhead strike, lowering his shield at the last second, leaving the bandit no time to react to the concealed strike, and the hammer lands with a ox-killing power, crushing the bandit's skull with a moist crunch. Zarissa splashes her maul into the side of the remaining frog, probably breaking ribs, and an arrow from Klaus makes it stay even worse. Drawn by the commotion, another group of bandits emerge from deeper into the cave. Irina tries to grab her bow and string an arrow, but her hands are slick with blood, and she can't quite ready it. One of the new bandits charges forward, shouting out, "Get away from Jessica!" Apparently the bandits are really fond of this frog. Roman counters the charge with his own, landing a thunderous strike with a wild haymaker from his hammer, which strikes true, sending them careening into a wall with a satisfying splat. The frog, fighting Zarissa, cornered and unable to run, snares her with his tongue, grappling her. Highly familiar with such circumstances, Zarissa is unfazed and crushes the frog with her maul. No one was actually sure which frog Jessica was, but the question has now become moot. From his more natural habitat in the rear of the party, Klaus picks out another dwarven bandit as it runs to join the fray, wounding it with an arrow. Not wanting to miss out on the action, Vlad decides to try his hand at close combat, running forward with his battle cry, Vlad, 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 on his lips. He swings his warhammer and misses, hitting a wall, with a resounding clang. An elven bandit near the back of the cave, very much surprised and confused by this sudden assault on their hideout, asks who the hell the party are, and without waiting for a response, fires a crossbow bolt, which hits Vlad in the knee, and nearly brings his adventuring career to an end. Irina responds with an arrow from her longbow, which catches the elf in the shoulder. Roman moves to assist Vlad, but the dwarven bandit they're fighting is swinging his weapon like a whirling dervish, and he can't find an opening. Having finished up her frog, Zarissa too rounds on the desperate bandit, but once again he manages to keep her at bay. Klaus and the elf bandit with the crossbow exchange shots. Klaus's goes wide, but the elf finds her mark, the bolt piercing deep into the cat's thigh. The bandit then turns and runs, disappearing into the depths of the cave. The now solitary dwarven bandit yells about the cowardice of elves and tries to break away from his combatants, scuttling behind a nearby rock. An arrow from Irina zips through the air, and from the darkness the party hear a bleh and the sound of a body slumping to the floor. Roman lays his hands on Vlad, healing him from the worst of his injury, and checks behind the rock, finding the corpse of the dwarf bandit with an arrow sticking between its eyes, and calls back to Irina complimenting her shot, to which she only shrugs casually. Zarissa rushes forward, further into the cave in pursuit of the fleeing elf, and finds what appears to be the bandit's sleeping chamber, but no sign of the crossbow-wielding elf. The rest of the group move up cautiously. Klaus and Vlad are still noticeably hobbling, and the whole group is feeling rather battered. Seeking to draw the hidden bandit's attention, or get her to give away her location, Irina summons her mage hand. An elegant, softly glowing, bejeweled hand apparates and glides forwards, curling fluidly and gracefully into a middle finger as it passes by Zarissa. Irina then guides it to scoop up a large rock and hurl it across the other side of the bedchamber. However, nothing stirs. Roman leads the way into the chamber, bellowing the name Halil, and that the group are here at the behest of Tolgi, and for her to show herself. His reply is a bolt from the darkness that penetrates a weak point in his armour, causing blood to trickle down his arm as he snaps the wooden shaft, leaving the tip in the wound for now. Zarissa inquires as to if he's alright and where the arrow came from, and despite the pain, Roman recalled that it came from away to their left, thanks to a perfect natural 20 on a history check. They spy the elf hiding behind some rocks a good distance down this new passage. Vlad sends another bolt of sacred flame at the elf, but she tumbles away, dodging the attack, and Vlad receives another crossbow bolt to the chest for his troubles, but he's feeling pretty worse for wear. The group pursue the elf as she flees, Roman and Zarissa taking the lead. As they reach the end of the tunnel, it opens up into another chamber, and they come upon a commotion as the elven bandit is being swarmed by angry bats, and they watch as she falls, drained of her blood, covered in their tiny predatory bodies. The swarm then turns on the new intruders. Roman and Zarissa hack and slash at this new threat, sending broken bodies tumbling from the cloud as it envelops, but their foes seem endless, and the arrows of Klaus and Irina do little to assist. Vlad releases another sacred flame, bringing pure burning light down upon the bats, sending charred little bodies flying, but the swarm still persists in its attack, covering Roman, but struggling to penetrate his thick armour. Klaus passes an intelligence check and realises that fire might help them overcome the swarm, lighting a torch and hurling it overhand at the cloud of bats. The blazing torch actually strikes Roman again, lighting the oils of his well-kept beard and armour, burning the bats from his body. The fire fanned by Roman's frantic strikes. Once more touching the divine, Vlad unleashes final burst of sacred flame into the remaining bats, exploding them out of the air, raining broken little bodies into the now smouldering guano that coats the cave floor. The smell of blood, viscera, burnt hair and guano is pretty overwhelming, and with that, quiet returns to the cave around the party, save for the ever-present dripping of moisture from the cave walls and ceiling. Bloodied and not a little shell-shocked from their ordeal, the party gather in the bandits' bedchamber, collect up various items of dropped gear, and give the bandits' possessions a once-over, finding very little of value amongst the suspicious-smelling roll mats and blankets and boxes. And taking a defensive position, they allow themselves a breather and take a short rest. And that's where we ended it. Quite a change of pace this session from the ones we've had up till now, with pretty much wall-to-wall full-on combat and a good number of quite close calls. Level 1 is super dicey. Oh my goodness, 2 hits and you're out. Irina's Hawkeye shooting and actually probably most of all Roman's armor class absolutely carried that fight. And Klaus learned a valuable lesson in that level 1 rogues really should stay towards the back of the party. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.